Welcome to a special Hulkamania edition of Stories of Brisco and Bradshaw. I'll be Bradshaw as always, and with me, my Chickasaw native, my partner, Chickasaw Hall of Famer, Mr. Gerald Brisco, and we have got the legendary. We had two great guys who are two of the best friends of the Immortal one, Hulk Hogan, who meant so much to me. One of the reasons I'm in this wrestling business. And one of the reasons this wrestling business is so successful, Mr. Hulk Hogan, but we got Mr. Brian Blair and the man, the front man for the Gentrys, Mr. Jimmy Hart. Guys, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.
Well, we appreciate it. Hey, Jimmy, so much has been made about Hulk and all this. You are one of the closest friends he's had for decades. How in the world did you and Hogan initially become friends?
42 years. We started in Memphis, Tennessee together. And I was with my band back then playing. Jerry the King Lawler invited me one night to come by the Memphis Coliseum. He said, I want you to take a look at somebody. I got down there, and there was this big giant guy in the ring, bleached blonde hair. He looked awesome. He goes, what do you think of that guy? And I said, King, oh my God, what's he go by? He said, Terry Boulder. And I went, holy moly. I said, man, he's going to be a star. He looks great. And Lawler goes, now Jerry denies it up to this day, but he goes, Jimmy, this guy will never make a dime in this business. And I said, why? He said, well, he's kind of, I know he did. He said, well, he's kind of clumsy and da-da-da. And I said, yeah, but he's just now starting. But when I tell that to Jerry, Jerry goes, I never said that. I never said it. And I said, come on, King. But that's how we met 42 years ago. We sure did.
Wow.
What was it really when he meant to Memphis there? He'd already been in Japan. So that was 42 years ago. So that was about 83, right?
Yeah, it's about that time. 70, about 79, 80 or whatever. But he, and then the next time I got with him is back when I got in professional wrestling with Jerry. I was managing him. Lawler broke his leg, and we shot this big angle where every week, every Monday night, we'd bring somebody else to fight for me. And if Jerry beat them, he got 10 minutes with Jimmy Hart, right? And so one of the people we brought in was Hulk Hogan then. He was Terry Bollea the first time I met him back in the first time. But then later on, a year or so later, he was Hulk Hogan. So we brought him in to fight the King. And thank good we got a DQ that night. So that way I didn't get to fight Jerry Lawler, So that was that. We became friends after that. We had so much in common. I came from a band background. He came from Ruckus in Tampa background. He loved music. Jerry Lawler loved music. So it was a great combination of us bonding really together back then.
Jimmy, that first time you met him, had you just came from Pensacola, or did you guys get him before Pensacola got him?
No, where he came in from? He came in from Vern Gagne them, because we brought so many different people in each week to help me fight Jerry Lawler, and so then he came in from Vern Gagne at that particular time.
Yeah. Brian, let's go back to the very, very beginning. Back in, I think it was 77, somewhere around there, right? When Terry was coming over, or was it 76?
Well, I met him in 1975 at the Other Place Lounge when I was 17 and snuck in, and he was playing in Ruckus. He had his mama's jewelry on and these big platforms, and he stood
you're in high school.
Wait a minute. His mama's jewelry on.
Yeah. Ruth.
Wait, Brian, there's so much to unpack in that first sentence. You're 17, you're in high school, you're sneaking in a bar, and he's wearing his mom's jewelry?
Yeah, Ruth. He would get Ruth's jewelry and wear this wild jewelry, looks like women's jewelry, and the long blonde hair, the tan, the perfect Fu Manchu, the big platforms, playing the bass guitar, rocking out. I mean, he was amazing, and he was so nice to me when I first met him. Then you fast forward, we're not too much forward. We were just marks in the Armory watching the wrestling matches, and he used to heckle the heels once in a while. And after that, we started in the dungeon at 106 North Albany Street. I started the summer before, and then Terry started in 77, I believe it was, end of 76, 77. And we broke in together.
I think you worked with him in Fort Myers, right?
I worked with him in Fort Myers. Yeah, I worked with him in Fort Myers.
Don Serrano was the first one, and if you don't mind, I'll tell that story there. I remember standing there. I was assisting Johnny Valentine at the time, and Johnny was really, honestly, against breaking Terry in. He just didn't didn't feel like he had anything. He was a rock and roller. He had that stigma, rock and roller, at the time. It was he was just here for trying to enhance himself and all that stuff. So, Jack and I took the time. We did the same thing. We went out the other place and saw his band, the Ruckus, and it got him to try out with Matt Suda. And of course, all that is history there, where he got his ankle injured by Matt Suda and slipped out of the arena and said, "I'll be back." And we all shook our heads. "Yeah, you'll be back. You're rock and roll. You won't be back." And about 6 weeks later, he was back. So when Terry come back, he was better at cardio shape, and I don't think the night before he had a gig, and the first time he got injured, he had a gig the night before, so he had probably been up till 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning, and this time he came in, he made sure he didn't have the gig the night before, came in refreshed, and they handled himself pretty good against Matt, to tell you the truth. And so, Eddie was there. Bruce Pritchard told me the other night that there's a video floating around of me, Jack, and Eddie, and Hero, and Terry in the ring during that time there. I've never seen it, but Bruce is going to track it down. But anyway, Terry had a short break-in period, and I talked to Hero, and he said he's ready to have a first match. So that's when we booked him against Don, because no offense to you, Brian, you were a greenhorn too. You didn't have the experience, but we booked him against Don Serrano. I remember the night, and Don, of course, went to the ring first. Don got to the ring. All of a sudden, there were no music, no fireworks, none of that bullshit back in the day. There, just okay. And his opponent out walked Terry Bollea, and he walked out, and he as close the arena just went silent. I don't know if you were there that night, Brian, or not, but the arena just went silent. And by the time he got to the ring, on his very first entrance into professional wrestling, he had a standing ovation going. And Jack and I kind of elbowed each other. Wow, this kid's got something, that we know he's got. So then I think, he wasn't getting many bookings. So I think the very next night you were working with him in Fort Myers. You guys went out, and I think you guys went 10, 15 minutes, or 10 minutes, or whatever the time was back in those days, and had a hell of a match. So then you kind of got that's where you kind of got in. And Brian, if you want to jump in on the Chiefland, then we booked him in Chiefland, Florida, a little spot show up the road here, and an arm with about 300 to 500 people. Brian, what happened to that night? That was supposed to be a 15-minute time limit?
Yeah, but I don't remember it. I don't remember him. Did he actually have a match with Don Serrano?
Oh, yeah, of course he did. He went out and had about a 10, 15-minute match, had a standing ovation, like I said, man. Brian, that's pretty well documented where his first match was against Don Serrano.
Yeah, I was in Fort Myers, and then anyway, in Chiefland, we had worked a match for, they told us we were going to have a 15-minute draw, so Terry and I worked in the gym on some spots and stuff, and in the dungeon, and so we get out there, and he's the Super Destroyer now. He's not Terry Bollea. He's got a mask on, and he's the Super Destroyer. And I have
and then just throw this in. It's in Chiefland Armory. No air conditioning. It's probably 115 degrees in that armory under that mask.
So anyway, we know we have a 15-minute match. I had been working for a couple months, so I was still green as grass, and we were both green, but we were having a really good match, and we hear 10 minutes gone, 5 minutes to go. And so, usually they have a 1-minute countdown, but it's going down. It seems like it's getting to 15 minutes, and we decide to kick it in and, start our comeback. And oh my gosh, all of a sudden we hear 15 minutes gone, 15 minutes to go, and we were just gassed to the gills. We had nothing left in the tank, and that was probably the worst 15-minute match in the history of wrestling. But I looked out, and I told Terry, I said, we must be having a heck of a match. Look, all the boys are out. It was Ivan Koloff and some of the other heels, the Brisco brothers, Morocco, everybody's out there watching the match. So we felt really good, like we were having a great match, and they were just waiting for the rib. And it was terrible.
Well, we did. We kept adding 5 minutes to it, and we just wanted. I mean, John and Jimmy, you guys know, you guys had experience. you play ribs in these little spot shows. You enjoy yourself. You have fun. And so we got two young guys out there that both of them are just full of it, full of testosterone and men wanting to go. So, okay, we're going to see what they can do. And we're just ad-libbing and throwing time out there. And to Brian's credit, he was able to lead the match through, and to Terry's credit, he was able to stay with Brian. They ended up having a hell of a match, as they say back in those days. For the, I think we ended up taking them 25, 30 minutes total time when they were expecting a 15-minute time limit. But Terry was getting ribbed right from the very beginning, and everybody saw the future in him. Of course, nobody saw, the greatness that he was going to become a few years later. But just looking at him, like people say, when you see somebody, great, and what do you look for? You look for greatness in a guy, and you look for size. Terry had all those ingredients. He had the personality from playing in a rock and roll band. He had that. He had timing down from music, I think. It really helped him with that. But we put him in there with another rookie that had all those attributes too, and Brian was able to lead him. And I think Brian, after that, you kind of worked with him around the loop a few times too, right?
Yeah, we worked several matches, and then I went to Oklahoma. You guys booked me in Oklahoma, or no, because Jack taught me the Jack Brisco roll up. I went to I went. They ran St. Louis, but it was Kansas City. You guys sent me to Kansas City, and then after that, I guess the stories. I was gone, but you can tell the stories with after that. But we had a great time. It was a lot of fun, and Terry's been such a good friend. He's been best man in my wedding. Him and Mr. Wonderful Paul Warndorf, and been to all my Gold's Gym openings, and we just went shooting not too long ago at a friend of mine. We've done so many things together. We've just, when I had osteomyelitis, he called me every day in the hospital. It's just so many memories that I'll always be thankful. I was with him the night he met Linda in L.A. He went to a place called the Red Onion, and he went there. I didn't go because I didn't want to go out. And the Claridge family, Linda Claridge, and he came back the next day. He was gone all night. Said that he met a girl, that he loved this girl right off the bat. Oh man, so many great memories.
Hey, Jimmy.
So the really strange thing about it, John, is when we were breaking him in, I mean, Johnny Valentine was our booker. Johnny just didn't see anything in him, and he wasn't getting many bookings at all. I mean, I'd write his name down, and Johnny said, "No, we got to put somebody that's here full time, that's on the roster, because your extras." He was considered an extra because he was still breaking in. But I was trying to push him on matches, and Johnny just wouldn't push him on matches. So Louis Tollett called me one day. I said, "Louis, I got this big guy down here that Johnny just don't seem to know what to do with." And I said, "I'd really appreciate it. He's a friend. He's become a friend of mine." I kind of gave him the history of Terry, and he said, "Send him up." And so we sent him on the road, and he come to Jack and I sitting in 106 North Albany, waiting in the dressing room back there. And he said, "Thanks for sending me up here, guys. I got nothing." Jack said, "When are you going up there, Terry?" And he said, in 10 days, and what size shoes? So Jack ordered him from Carl Hildegard. Jack ordered him his first pair of boots. And then I said, the day before you leave, come and see me. I'm going to give you something. He said, "Oh, you don't have to do that." I said, "You haven't done enough." So the next day, the day before his leave, he came to me. I said, "How much money?" He said, I got a few bucks. And I pulled out, I had $100 to gave him $100 bill, which, by the way, he did pay me back years later. But we sent him to Louis Tollett up there. Louis was really the one that really first saw the greatness in Terry Bollea. And I think from there, Jimmy, that's when you guys got him from there, right?
I think so. Yeah. For some reason, I thought he came in from Vern Gagne at the time because he was pretty polished then.
No,
and we
he finished us out before he went to the Verns area.
Oh, okay. I didn't, because Jerry Lawler, they brought him in. He said, "You got a guy named Hulk Hogan's going to be fighting with you this Monday night. And I went, oh, great, great. And all of a sudden I said, man, is that the same guy that was called Terry Boulder years ago? He goes, absolutely. And so sure enough, it was. And it just, I couldn't believe we saw each other again and everything else. And we became good friends. And then the next thing you know, he's in New York and I'm still down there for I would say there 6 years. I think I went about a year and a half after Terry went to New York. And then when I first came up to New York, he goes, oh, my God, are you coming up to manage me? And I said, I wish, but I had all the heels back then. I had the first WrestleMania. I had King Kong Bundy and Greg Valentine. And, of course, after that, I had Neidhart down in Memphis also. Then I managed Neidhart up there. Then I had Bret Hart came in. We teamed up. It's the Hart Foundation. Then I had the Nasty Boys, the Rougeau brothers, Earthquake and Typhoon, Brutus and Hulk later on for WrestleMania 9. And just so many of them. I think altogether I had 23 different people I had managed up there before WrestleMania 9. Then I took over with Hulk and Brutus. We shot the angle with Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Shyster, Mike Rotundo, who I was managing before that. I've got to be the worst manager in the world. Everybody I had a belt with, I'd turn on them to manage somebody else, and then we took that belt. So it was a crazy time for me. But Hulk's always been special. He's always been so cool, so good. And of course, we did the album together. We did Thunder in Paradise together, the movies together, his TV reality show together. So he always included me with him on everything through all the years. And, it's just been one heck of a ride with him. It's just awesome.
Hey, Jimmy, you have been around tons of top talent. You managed basically all the top talent in the history of the world. So when you first met Hulk, when he was there, and you first see him, Johnny Valentine didn't see much in him. And, from what you say, the Lawler didn't see that much in him.
Right.
Lawler disputes that, but,
Right.
but you had guys who didn't see much in him. He was just a big guy who played a little rock and roll. When you first saw him, did you think this guy could be a huge star?
Well, you forget I was in music then, so I thought everybody in wrestling was a big star because I always loved professional wrestling back then. I remember when I was about 10 or 12 years old, my uncle JB used to take me to Jackson, Mississippi every summer. And on Wednesday night, we got to go see professional wrestling. And I looked so forward to going to Jackson every summer when we were out of school, and I just loved it back then. And then when I had the band, when I was back in town, after we did the Dick Clark tours, even on the tours, like if I was in, say, Florida, I would watch Florida wrestling back then. I'd watch the Briscoe, the Dusty, and just everybody. And then I was down in Carolinas, it'd be Ric Flair and all those guys. And that was on the Dick Clark tours, and I'd watch on Saturday morning. I'd look in the paper, oh man, wrestling comes on at 8 or 9 or whatever, and I loved that. And so when I was back with Lawler back then, I used to watch the local wrestling with Sputnik Monroe and Billy Wicks and all those guys. So I'd always been a fan of it. But when I saw Hulk for the first time, Terry Boulder back then, there was just something special. But I always watched the people. And I always got with Lawler, and Lawler always said, what do you see in him? And I told him, I just said, God, he's bigger than life. But I said, I watch all the people, the way they react to everything he does. And I always, a little later on in the years, the way I judge talent too, I'd always go, well, who's selling the most merchandise? If you had merchandise out. And because you can't make the people buy the merchandise if they don't want to. And that shows who's over and who's not over, buddy, let me tell you. And so I'd look at the merchandise sales, I'd look at everything, and I'm going, wow, man. And posters in the audience. When people take the time to make their posters up, whether they boo you or whether they cheer you, there's something special about those people, the wrestlers that are in the ring.
And so what year was it that you went to WWE from Tennessee?
The first WrestleMania, when the first WrestleMania, 84, so I probably went up there maybe I went up about 4 months before the WrestleMania. And I had to work in the office up there, which I'd never been in an office in my life. Memphis didn't have an office. The office was Jerry Lawler's kitchen. And so the first thing, first of all, when I was in Memphis and I was managing Jerry and a few more guys, that's when I got the call from Howard Finkel. And Howard Finkel called me and goes, Jimmy Hart, I got your number from Hillbilly Jim, who was Harley Davidson back then. And so for us, and he said, look, Vince saw your tapes, him and George Scott, and they want to know would you be interested in coming up there? And I went, I think I would, but back then that's when Vince was taking different talent from different areas, so you couldn't mention their name on anything. Oh my God, I'd have been beat up to death. And so I said, I'd love to. So he said, Vince is going to call you in 30 minutes. Sure enough, Vince called me, and I went, oh, my God. If you think my hair is high now, it's about up to here. I'm going, oh, my God. And he goes, Jimmy Hart? Yes, sir, Vince McMahon. He goes, look, we're interested in you. Would you like to come up here for us? We got a show WrestleMania coming up. And I said, yes, sir, I would. He goes, well, we're going to put you on the phone with our office. We'll have you up here tomorrow. And I said, oh, well, I can't go tomorrow because I said, I've got to do TV because Lauder is over in Japan. And I said, Jerry Jarrett's on a hunting trip, and they gave me the tapes to run TV for Saturday. And he goes, well, I like that in you. If you do that for them, you do it for me. He said, I said, I can come up Monday. And he goes, okay. He goes, I'm going to put you on with our talent, our booking, our plane, our big travel agency, okay? Travel agency. So I got on with them, and they go, what's your frequent flyer number? I didn't even have a frequent flyer number because we were driving in cars back then, but I didn't want to tell them that. And I went, well, whatever you put me on is fine. Well, no, you want to go Delta? You want to go? So I said, just whatever you put me on, ma'am, I'm happy. Well, give me your frequent number. And I said, well, I don't really have my billfold here with me and everything. I can kind of put it in later. She said, yeah, you can put it in later, but I never really had one. Then when I got up there, big, nice town car picked me up, took me to the hotel, went to see Vince and sit down with Vince. And we talked and everything. And I said, well, Mr. McMahon, I don't do drugs. I don't do everything. And I'll always be on time. And I'm sure he's heard that a million times. But, that's how we first met. And then he put me in charge of the first WrestleMania, talking to Bob Costas. And Bob Costas coming to go, Mr. Hart, oh, I'm so glad to be with y'all. And I'm going, oh, well, thank you. What can I do? And he said, can you pull me the Jimmy Superfly Snooker tape? Yes, sir, I can. I wrote it down. Can you pull me about different tapes to pull? And right next to my room where they had the office for me, and I had a little secretary, all I had to do was go pull the tapes. So I went over there and I pulled the tapes. And when I pulled the dadgum tapes, I got them back the same day. And Mr. Costas called and goes, this is the first time anybody's ever done anything that quick. Well, then I got in trouble because I didn't know you had to report whatever you did to all the other offices. And so I got called in the office. Vince goes, Jimmy, you did a great job on that. But let me tell you what, we have to let everybody in the office know what you did. If not, then they're going to do that. I went, yes, sir. So I learned a lesson on that too, but everything was just great.
Hey, Brian, 1982, a movie that changed the wrestling business forever was the Rocky movie. And all of a sudden you have Hulk standing there, and he looked like he was about 9 feet tall, standing across from Sylvester Stallone. It just, thunder lips in the flesh, baby. The ultimate male versus the ultimate meatball. It was just one of the greatest things ever. And all of a sudden, WrestleMania is coming. Did you realize at that time how big it was for Terry and how big it was going to be for the wrestling business because of that movie?
No, I didn't realize. I knew that was going to be a big feather in his cap and a big help him excel a lot, but I had no idea it would get as big as it would. To me, without Hogan, well, it took a whole team, but Hogan and McMahon, I mean, they were so key. I remember too something that just popped up in my mind was when Vince McMahon Sr., because I had been to WWF in '83. Then I was there in '84, and I think they dropped the F, one of the W's. I mean, and we were at one of the TV tapings in Hamburg, I believe, and Terry and I were talking, and then Vince McMahon Sr. Turned around. He was right there. The line was probably 20 people long. There's only one toilet there. And Vince and Terry started talking. Then Vince Sr. goes into the toilet. And then it's Terry's turn. I'm right behind him. And all of a sudden he goes, Brian, look. And I look, and the whole toilet bowl was full of blood, pure blood. And not long after that is when Senior passed. We didn't realize that he had that cancer, prostate cancer or whatever it was. But
oh, wow.
I remember that really freaking Terry out. But
yeah,
as far as the Thunder Lips goes, that was the big feather in the cap, the big propeller that really launched Terry's career, I believe.
And Brian, you were up there during that time, right? Of when the Rocky came out. What was the boys' thought? Because apparently that Vince McMahon, I guess Jr., did not want him to take time off to do the movie, and he did it anyway. and it turned out to be the biggest thing that happened not only for Hulk but for the wrestling business. What did the boys think when that came out?
Well, I think everybody was happy about. You talk about the movie?
Yeah, the movie about him
Yes,
being in that movie,
absolutely.
being such a big star. Because
I
the
think
reason I asked this, Brian, the reason I asked this because I remember the first time that Shawn Michaels was on the cover of a magazine back in '96 or something like that. We didn't have anybody on the cover of nothing. Business really went down after Hogan stepped away for a while at the WrestleMania 6, whenever it was. And all of a sudden, I remember Sean got on the cover of something, and we're like, "Oh my God, this is unbelievable!" We were shocked, because none of our guys did that. Was that the same with you guys?
Yeah, but I think Missing Link was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. Was the first wrestler ever on the cover of Sports Illustrated. But yeah, Terry was larger than life, and yet he was as humble and loving and simple as a person could be. I mean, he was a blue jean, tennis shoes, t-shirt guy, but he could be Hulk Hogan and light up everything just like that. On a
Brian, you're probably closer to him than anybody. What did Terry change any during that time, or did he stay that same humble Terry Bollea that you and I and Jimmy knew in the early stages?
Yes, he stayed humble. Jimmy worked kind of for him and with him, whereas I was always just a friend. He never loaned me a nickel. I never asked him for a nickel. I'm sure he would have given me anything, but he stayed humble. I mean, just recently, before he was in the hospital, he was asking about Jim Seagraves, a guy up in whose ranch we go to, telling me how nice he was, and he wanted to go back up shooting again, and for me to arrange a time, he'd let me know, and he wanted to go back up there and shoot targets, and he was always humble. I don't ever remember him being mean to anybody unless he was a heel.
Yeah, go ahead. I'm sorry. I remember those days too. You and I were traveling with him a lot because we were Tampa boys and together all the time. And he everywhere he went, as the fame was creeping up, his ego to me never ever wavered and being that old Port Tampa boy. He was always just down to earth. And I think Ruth and what was his
Pete.
dad?
Pete.
Pete did a tremendous job. And speaking of Ruth, it's kind of funny, John. In the beginning, when Terry was taking bookings, Ruth wasn't real wild about him getting into the business. She really wasn't, and I and Brian, you're going to have to help me with names here. So I would call Terry's home, and Terry, when he wasn't out late at night playing in the rock and roll band, he was at the gym working out because he had that body back when he was young like that too, and it's huge. And so I would give Ruth the dates. I said, make sure he's there. And Ruth would never pass the dates along because she didn't want him getting beat up all the time. So there was that girl that the neighbor that worked at the other place. I can't remember her name, but she plays a vital role in Terry's deal. So Jack and I ran into her, and she said, "Hey, Terry's not getting bookings. He's getting really depressed, thinking he made the wrong decision." I said, I'm giving Ruth the booking because I could never get a hold of Terry. Back then there were no cell phones, so I just had to call his home phone, as everybody knows. So she said, well, in the future, call me and I'll make sure Terry gets the dates. So that's really how Terry started getting that knowledge of when he was booked, is not through his mother, because Ruth did not want him in the business getting beat up every night, and so she certainly changed her attitude a few years later. But that just comes some of the struggles that Terry had breaking into business there. So I always thought that was really unique that we had to go through a third party to get Terry Bollea's bookings.
Yeah, and Ruth became his biggest cheerleader later. Yeah. But you're right, yeah. Gerald. She didn't want him at first, and we went through a lot at the beginning. I mean, his first real love was a girl named Donna, so that was a interesting ordeal. But one of the things that I remember that Terry and I got, it was very emotional, was when his brother Alan died. And we were in LA. I met Alan actually, Terry and I still have my Harley Davidson that Willie G. Davidson sold to Terry and I. We were sitting, it was the first year of Saturday Night Main Event, and Terry says, hey, Brian, come here. I want you to meet somebody. Hey, this is Willie G. Davidson of Harley Davidson. I said, oh, yeah, nice to meet you. And anyway, Willie G. said, hey, this is 1987. Hey, the new 87 Softail Customs are coming out. Do you guys, if you guys want one, I'll give it to you for cost. Terry goes, heck yeah, I'll take one. And I said, like I always drove a rice grinder, a used one. I didn't have one.
Yeah, even with the discount, even with the discount, you didn't have it,
right? Well, I wound up. They retailed for $10,995. Then the dealer paid $7,599. I have this all on paper, shipped to Hulk Hogan, and they charged us. Arlen Ness customized them, and they charged us $4,589 and shipped them to us right here in Tampa. But, that's Terry was just always thinking about everybody around him. I mean, and others, anybody that would come up to him. He was a great guy. And I hate when I see people write bad things about him because they just don't know him.
Yeah.
He was
Jimmy and I was talking about that on a return trip the other night from Cleveland, just guys that never knew Terry, and all they're hearing is hearsay about him. If you traveled with him, and Brian, you're probably be the first to acknowledge this, and Jimmy and I will too. The main reason I ended up with WWE was because of Terry Bollea. I mean, I think we could all. Brian, you worked for Vince Senior, and we did too. But I'm talking about the job that I eventually ended up holding for 36 years. But Terry's the one that told Vince to call me and all this stuff, and he called me pre-Vince call and say Vince is going to call you. This is what I've told him. And I'd like it if you would come up and kind of look after me. So I took that job because of Terry. But Brian and Jimmy, you guys both have experienced that. Terry was very loyal to his friends. I mean, Beefcake's one of them, and Jimmy's one of them. They met earlier, and Brian, you're certainly one of them. Tell us a little bit about his loyalty, Brian.
Well, he put Brunzy and I together. When I left WWF senior and junior, I talked to both of them. And then when did senior passed in what, 83, 4?
84, I believe.
Yeah. And so they were going to let me come back and work for the Intercontinental belt. And I came to Florida and became the Florida heavyweight champion. And then I get a call from Terry and said, hey, Vince is creating this huge tag team division, and it's going to be like nothing you've ever seen. He's telling me these guys that are coming in. And he says, I got an idea of a guy that I worked with in AWA, Jim Brunzell. And he asked me if I knew Jimmy. And I said, I just saw him in some magazines and heard he was a nice guy. So anyway, we met in Canada, where we did TV there. What was that place? Not Hamburg, but anyway, we met for the TV in Canada after Terry and I. Terry put Brunzy and I together, and actually, the Gagnes were really peed because Vince stole their top star. That's when WWF was picking all the top talents from all the places. So Terry went in and helped Junior identify, every top guy, and helped, formulate the whole before WrestleMania 1, and then before WrestleMania 2. Sorry,
Jimmy, I want to ask you. You're talking about the how much Hulk did for so many people. I showed you this picture earlier. It was the front page of the Royal Gazette in Bermuda.
Oh yeah, awesome.
You remember that I brought my kids over from Bermuda. They're my,
Yes.
kids. Patrick Callow was our coach, but we had, a program working with, kids, trying to keep them out of gangs, keep them, at-risk type kids, keep them out of jail, keep them in school and things like that. So I take them to NXT because I know they're filming one of the TV shows. I can't remember which one it was. It was one of the shows that Hulk was a part of. And I said, guys, listen, just stand on the side. You're going to see the big stars. You're probably not going to get a chance to talk to any of them. I said, but don't bother them because they're all working. And I said, this is a working environment. Don't make any noise and things like that. So they're all in their best behavior and, realized they wouldn't get a chance to meet anybody. Hulk at the time, it was one of the times when his back was really bad. When he's having the surgeries or whatever it was, he could barely walk. Hulk got up, and he was the only one out of all the big celebrities that were on the set, came over and greeted every single one of those kids. It was just remarkable. And he could barely walk. I mean, he hobbled over. Those kids were hanging all over him. I'm trying to get it there like a jungle gym. I'm going, guys, get off of him. Get off of him. He's having surgery soon. But he was just the nicest. He gave those kids a lifetime memory that those kids will never forget. You must have seen this because this didn't happen in a vacuum. This was Hogan. Every time I ever was around him, he was one of the most gracious and giving people that I've ever been around. One of the most nice people. You must have seen this every single day.
Well, when they switched me babyface with Hulk for that last year and a half up in New York, we'd do the Make-A-Wishes every night, okay? And Hulk would go out with them, but he'd spend time with the kids. He'd rub their arms and go, I'm going to fight that big bad guy tonight. I need some energy. I need some strength. Let me take them from your muscles. And he'd rub their arms. And he said, look, I'm going to win tonight because of you. So make sure you cheer. Then we'd go in the back and he'd go, Jimmy, get me a tissue. I'd have to go get him a tissue because it would break his heart because he said, Jimmy, when we come back a year from now or 6 months from now, half these kids won't be here. But that broke his heart. We'd wipe the tears off. We'd go straight to the ring. But that's what he was. Also, I was going to tell you about helping friends. He had a great program for a while with Kamala. So one day we were in a room and he goes, Kamala, what'd you get on your check? He goes, this is what I made. He said, man, I got to call Vince. You got to get more than that. He'd call Vince and go, Caesar, let me tell you something. He said, man, Kamala, we're having great matches or sellouts. You got to get with Barnett. We got to get him more money than that. And sure enough, next week he said, what'd you get? He goes, oh, thank you, Hulkster. He got more. Coco Beware got in a major fight with a guy named Jim Troy over in Europe because Jim Troy was saying, hey, hockey or whatever he was doing was tougher than wrestling. So somehow or another, he was knocking the wrestling. Boy, Coco, oh, my God, beat the you-know-what out of him. So all of a sudden they sent Coco home. Coco calls Hulk. He goes, Hulk. He goes, I got sent home and maybe fired because of that. Hulk called Vince. He goes, Caesar, let me tell you something. He was taking up for our business. Don't you dare let that kid go. And sure enough, Coco was right back a week later, But so many things like that happened that you never really hear about,
And something that most people don't know is Vince was called Caesar by a lot of the people.
Yes. Chief J. Strongbow.
Gave him that? Chief J. Strongbow named that. That's
Caesar. Call him Caesar. Oh, he goes, I got to call Caesar. Oh, my gosh. But it was just such a great time right there. But Hulk was so special and so good to everybody. And all the boys wanted to be on his card because back then we didn't give guarantees. It was wherever you were on that card, whatever position we in, and whatever the house did, it's how you made your money. So when we got our booking sheets every couple of weeks, we'd go, Hulk's card. Oh, man, that's going to be good. Oh, Hulk's over here. That's going to be great. Oh, my God, I've got 4 days. This is awesome. Back when I was a heel, managing the heels. And, of course, when I was with Hulk, it was really, really good because I was with him all the time then.
Yeah, you'd always look at those cards to see where Hulk was, to see where you were. You always wanted on those cards with Hulk. But, Jimmy, tell us how that really happened. We just can't pass over, I got put with Hulk Hogan. How did you get put with Hulk?
Here's what happened. I was managing the tag team champions once again, Ted DiBiase and Erwin R. Scheisler and Mike Rotundo. So all of a sudden, we had the Raw and on Monday night, and they came to me, Hulk did, and Vince, he goes, look, we're going to switch you babyface tonight. Here's what we're going to do. You're going to go out with DiBiase and them. Brutus is going to come out for the first time. Brutus is coming out after he had all that surgery. Back then, he was well enough to wrestle again. So when he came out, when he came out on everything, they said, look, they're gonna wipe him out, put him down, and right before they bash his head in, they're gonna grab your megaphone to hit him with it. You dive across his body and stop him from it. So that's what I did. I drove across Brutus's body to stop him from using my megaphone, beating him up. And so Ted DiBiase, they left the ring with the belts. I went to the back, and that's when we shot the interview going, Jimmy Hart, I always knew you were a Hulkamaniac. You've got red, white, and blue running through your veins like I do. And so, because of that, I want you with me from now on. Okay, Hulkster. And so that's how we did the switch. And so then WrestleMania 9, that's how I managed Hulk and Brutus against Ted DiBiase and Mike Rotundo. Just that quick. It happened overnight. And, you know, I've gone from being booed and stuff thrown on me every night.
What was your thought process? You got to think, holy cow, I'm being put with the golden goose here.
I said, oh my God, I'm fixing to start riding in the limousine. We're fixing to go first class. And I said, oh, this is going to be great. And you know what? And a lot of people don't know this, but I really never quit WWE or got fired or anything. What happened, Hulk, after we did all that and did a few more things, Hulk was going to leave, take a break to go do Thunder in Paradise for 6 months. So all of a sudden, I'm babyface with Hulk. Hulk's leaving. Warrior was the champion. He didn't need a manager. And I already managed half the people on the card. So I went to Vince in Madison Square Garden. I said, Vince, listen. I said, right now, I know it's quick and you don't have a lot of plans for it. He goes, no, we're going to put something together for you. I said, I know it. But I said, while you're doing that, because you only got paid if you work. I said, could I go with Hulk to do Thunder in Paradise for 6 months? And then maybe by then, whatever y'all want me to do. He goes, that whatever you want to do. And I said, that's what I want to do. And he goes, okay, great. So I never got let go. I never got fired. I never quit. It was kind of up in the air, you know? And so I went and did that we were about 3 months into it. It's when Eric and Ric Flair came through because they were filming at Disney like we were. And so that's when Eric got with Hulk and said, look, Hulk goes, you know, I hadn't heard back from Vince in 3 months, so I don't think I have a job anymore, or Jimmy either. And so that's how that all worked out with us going to WCW. And so they brought me down not only to manage and to work in the office, but to do the music for them, because back then they were just using incidental tapes, you know, that you could buy over the deal. And so they were just using that type thing. So I was able to go down and create the music, work in the office a little bit on the booking committee with Arn Anderson and Kevin Sullivan and all them. And so that's how it worked. But I really never quit. I never left. It was just kind of one of those things like poof, you know.
Did Hogan have much hesitation about going to WCW? I mean, he's so tied to the WrestleMania era, and he's so tied to slamming the giant in front of 93,000 people. I mean, he is WWE. Did he have much hesitation about going?
Well, not really, because he loves the business. That's all we ever talked about. Oh my gosh, we didn't talk about music. We didn't talk about anything. It was just all the ways to wrestling, and he loved it. So when that came out, he goes, well, Jimmy, I hadn't heard from Vince. You're going with me, aren't you? And I said, yeah, whatever you want. That's the thing. Hulk took me everywhere. You know, I went to Memphis up there, for Memphis there, for Vince called me to do that. Nothing to do with Hulk at the time. But later on, he wanted me, everything we did, he wanted me with him on that, which I was very grateful for. So I went to WCW, and it just, everything we did, you know, back Thunder in Paradise, that and everything, it sure was. Excuse me.
And did the Thunder in Paradise? Because I thought it was good. I don't know if I'm the only one that did. I thought the series was going to go on for quite some time. Why did it not continue going?
I think the timing. What happened? The timing wasn't right, and where we were placed on the times of shows. Some of them were just bounced around everywhere. You know, some might be on 4 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, 3. You know, and to be consistent, you got to have a regular time people see it. And at that time, you couldn't use any weapons. If you watch the show back, you know, you never saw any guns or anything else in it. It was like always fist or whatever, or somebody throwing a frisbee and knocking somebody else up. But you know what Hulk did? He loved everybody. We had Jim Neidhart on there. We had Brutus on there. I think even Brian might have, you know, and we had so many of the wrestlers on all the episodes, you know. So that's once again with Hulk being Hulk Hogan, telling he goes, look, man, he goes, I want to use some of my wrestler friends on it. Okay, Hulk, whatever you want to do, you know. And that's what happened on it. But I think the timing was not right, because back then it would shoot them up and everything going crazy, and we couldn't use any guns on it, you know.
Brian, how did that call come from Terry when he asked you to be on Thunder in Paradise?
It was just. Oh, go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh no, it's okay, Jimmy. He just called and asked me if I wanted to come over and do an episode with him. I said absolutely. So I was just a heel and played a little heel part in there, but like Jimmy said, you know, he would try to get all of his buddies into the episodes, into everything. I mean, he was always sharing and trying to get, you know, the guys that he liked, the guys that were good to him, and he appreciated. He was always trying to get them some kind of gig. Great, just the best.
Same thing
I
in
know during
WCW.
I know during your election when you ran for successfully ran for the Hillsborough County commissioner there, he was a great supporter of yours also, right, Dave?
Oh yeah, he was my attraction for my first fundraiser and my largest fundraiser.
Yeah,
He also did every four. Opened up four Gold's Gyms. He did every
right.
grand opening. Um,
And the
I
picture that I recently posted of Wes and Joe as young kids was at your grand opening of your Gold's Gym over on Del Mabry Avenue. I remember that very well. Just
Yeah,
the
we had a.
line.
Do you remember Gerald how long the line was? The office sent us
Oh
a
God,
thousand
it was
pictures and they were all gone.
the police came and basically had to shut the line down, John and Jimmy, because it was stretching out on Del Mabry Highway, one of the main thoroughfares there, where traffic could not flow. That's how big of a line that Terry drew at the Gold's Gym, Brian's Gold Gym there on Tampa.
Well, you know what, too? When we did SmackDown last week, Jerry, John Coleman called me about going to SmackDown. Just that day I was rushing, trying to get ready. He goes, "We want you on SmackDown." I went, "Okay, great, great." He goes, "Name who can we bring up there that Hulk was great with?" I said, I was on the phone. I said, "What about Jerry Brisco? He lives here. Brian Blair lives here." I said, if we could get Hacksaw, he loved Hacksaw. I said, we could get Sergeant Slaughter, because all these had great things with it. They called him, they got him. Ted DiBiase had a great program with him. So thank God to WWE, which has been, WWE has been phenomenal. Triple H and Mr. Khan and Bruce Pritchard. I mean, the tribute we did on SmackDown was unbelievable. The tribute last night was great. I think they're doing something at SummerSlam, but WWE should be so unbelievable. Hulk would be so happy, so happy. And people come to me and they go, Jimmy, we feel so bad for your loss, your grief. And I just said, no, but I said, but he's happy now. No more pain, no more suffering. And I said, he's going to be up there with all the boys. He's going to be up there with Randy Savage and Andre the Giant and Dusty Rose and the Wild Samoa and Zeke and Alpha, who he loved back in the day. Jim Neidhart and just so many of the stars. And I said, he's going to be so happy and no more suffering. And that's what I'm happy about. No more suffering, because he was in pain. We were doing the Real American Beer Tour, this year. And he was, even though we had a private jet we were on and everything, but when he got there just limping, the back was so bad, his neck was bad, but he hardly ever complained over it. But he got out there in front of the people and did everything. So, it's a sad time for us, but I'm just so happy he's where he can be happy now.
Well, I know you two have became really tight friends along with Brian there. Of all the people, probably you and Brian walked him through all these injuries that he's had currently, was stayed by his side closer than any non-family member, and I'm sure Terry appreciated it. But Brian, you've expressed to me some of the pain that Terry was in and through all these operations. Can you kind of describe what you shared with me before about the pain and agony these last few years?
Oh, I mean, if you looked at an X-ray of Terry, it looks like a railroad track from the bottom, from his very lowest vertebrae, all the way up to where his neck began. I mean, it's because of the metal, it's just like a train track. I took him to Dr. Alicani at TGH, the guy that fixed my back, and basically Dr. Alicani said that he's a tremendous surgeon. He said there wasn't anything he could do other than recommend these pretty non-invasive treatments. And anyway, it's just he was in pain. But when my son was murdered in 2021 and COVID was rampant, Terry was hurting so bad, but he came to the church, to the funeral. He was there, and it just meant so much to me that he had come through all that pain and taking the chance on getting COVID. Everybody was COVID afraid then, and it was he just had that kind of a heart and that kind of loyalty to his friends. There's no better person than Hulk Hogan. And I'll tell you something, one last thing. There's a TikTok video. If you really want to see what Terry was like, he did a TikTok video not that long ago about his faith. And if he died tomorrow, I mean, all the glamour, all the Hulk Hogan, all the money, all the toys means nothing. You don't take it with you. You got to surrender your life to Jesus Christ, and you've got to believe. I mean, what else is there? We're only passing through this life. And, he professed his faith without fear. He did it, it took a lot of guts for him to go out and support Trump. Whether you're a Democrat or whether you're a Republican, it doesn't matter when you want to look at, just like Rock learned. If you choose one side, Rock supported the Democrats at one time, Biden and them, but and he realized he shouldn't have really got in politics because it kind of hurt him. But Terry was fearless about that. I mean, if he had a conviction, that's what he went with. He went with his conviction, his heart. He was the real deal. He didn't, we all, everybody's jockeying for position when you're in the wrestling business. I mean, you taught me that, Gerald. You're always going to be just, use your manners, respect your elders, all the good things. Well, Terry never, because you taught him that too, and he never forgot that.
He did.
He never did. He always respected you and Jack, and always appreciated his roots. And just there's not enough good things to say about Terry.
Hey, Jerry, speaking of what you're talking about now, that's what happened to us when we went to Los Angeles. You hear so much about that, but I want to set that straight too. In my opinion, this is what happened.
Please do.
Yeah, here's the deal. I'm not a Democrat or Republican. I'm just a jabroni. Huck knew that. Okay, so I didn't go with him to the Republican convention or anything because not because I wanted to hide or it wasn't for Trump or wasn't for Biden or anybody. I'm just, like I said, jabroni. So, but we went.
And I'm going to say this: that Terry respected that. That's the reason Jimmy, you got to go.
Right. So we were going to Los Angeles. Now going in there, which I kind of told Hulk, I said, "Wow," I said, blue state, red state. I said, "Woo," He had a Trump Vance T-shirt on, which he did some pre-publicity. Right. I'm going, oh my gosh, this is going to be good. We've got Kamala Harris down around the block with her big thing going on, right? So we come flying into LA, baby, So we come in there, man, he's got that Trump Vance T-shirt on. We get out, man, we go, and all of a sudden I hear a few of the people like, oh, no, Trump Vance. I'm going, you know what? This doesn't feel right. Jimmy, don't worry about it. Okay, Hulk, that's okay. Don't worry about it. So we go in there and we do our little rehearsal and stuff like that. And my job is just to wave the flag, brother. Wave the flag. Don't let it hit the ground. Wave that flag, man. I'm just waving the heck out of it. So we go out. We kind of get a mixed reaction, And this, you can have 500 people cheering you and one person booing you, but I'll be darned if that one person booing doesn't outshine the dadgum 500 cheering for you. You know how that works, right? So we go out, so it's kind of a mixed reaction, but it's a little bit more booze than anything. But that devastated him. And we got in the back, and he said, what do you think happened? I said, Hulk, it's simple. Blue state, red state, Trump Vance. I said, I mean, really? I said, I'm okay with it. He goes, what do you think? And I said, I'm okay. I felt like I was managing the Hart Foundation against the British Bulldogs or the Killer Bees or somebody. So I didn't, I'm like, whoa, I'm waving the hat. More they booed. I'm like, yeah. But that bothered him because of that. And I said, well, surely people are going to realize what that was for. Then the next week we're in Texas and it's all cheers, But that always bothered him. It sure did.
Yeah.
But I got a lot of respect for that. I mean, I'm not talking about politically. I don't care about if
right.
Kamala, Biden, or Trump. Doesn't matter. But you support somebody and you're willing to speak out because if you speak out in this politically partisan world, half of the country is going to be mad at you.
You're right.
Absolutely.
But if you're willing to stand up, if it's important enough to you, then you stand up for what you believe in and you take the fallout from it.
Well, he did. He said, Jimmy, I have to do it. He said, I just have to do it. I think this is the right thing. He's going to straighten this place out. He's going to do it. And so far, Huck's been right. It's looking pretty darn good, So, like I said, my whole thing, and this from just me, I ain't mad at nobody. I don't hate nobody. I don't care back in the day, who got the push, and I didn't get back in the dressing room. Why did they get a push or not? It didn't matter to me. I didn't mind going out 3 or 4 times a night. I didn't mind doing anything. Whoever Vince and them put me with, or George Scott, or whoever, I didn't mind that. Or even the territory with Jerry Lawler. If they were going to paint me yellow, I'd buy the paint. If they were going to whip me with the belt, I'd get the belt. The thinnest belt I could, but it
That's
didn't
right.
matter.
Yeah.
Whoever I've worked for, I've just said, I'm going to be on time. I'm going to be dependable. And that's it, you know. So that's the way I've always been on everything.
Hey, Brian, you mentioned the Gold's Gym, you know, and of course, a lot of the injuries and stuff, you know, a lot of the older guys, you know, like us, where guys that lifted a lot of heavyweights have a lot of problems. And guys that wrestled have a lot of problems. Guys that did both have multiple problems. I saw an old thing of Hogan back getting ready for WrestleMania. I think it was three. Those massive freaking arms, and he's curling like 155 or 165. He had a wheel on each side and a 10 and a 5. I mean, that's pretty freaking strong. How strong was Hogan?
He was strong, not like a power lifter, but he was very strong. You know, he got big. And let me say this too, John, that a lot of people didn't realize that Terry could handle himself. Vern Gagne found out the hard way because Vern went to leg dive him. He got so mad at Terry, and Terry pancaked him and front face locked him. You know, Gerald could tell you, I mean, they taught us MMA before MMA was cool, hooking and, you know, like Wiggins style dungeon stuff. And Terry was really good at it at the beginning. He was easy because I have a wrestling background. He was kind of easy, but he was strong. He was so strong. It was, you know, he was kind of like Orndorff, so strong that you get strong guys like that powerful. They're harder to deal with. But later as it went on, you know, Terry got where he could handle himself with anybody. I mean, he was at times, you know, he would get the best of Matsuda, who was a tremendous hooker. Terry was a tough guy, but he was very, very strong. But, you know, I don't think he was more of a bodybuilder than a power lifter. And, you know, JBL, I mean, look at your body, you know, even today. You know,
I'd rather not look at JBL's body.
He's not talking to you, Brisco.
You know, he is a Texan, so we won't go there. You got that, you know, the
But
Dusty
you know, I've
Rhodes
always
had
said
that.
that, Brian.
Dusty Rhodes had the quintessential Texas body, and John tried to follow that image.
Hey, yeah, I'm following Dusty and Murdoch. I got no competition. If I can just show up, I look good.
As long as he can lift a 12 out there, he could do it. So
That's
what you're
right.
saying, Brian, and Terry was extremely strong on the weights.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, he could move a lot of weight. And but again, you know, he worked out at one time to hulk up, but then you know, as the years went by, he wanted to chisel up, which he did, you know, and it takes a lot of work to do that.
A lot of.
Do you know what his max weight was when he was competing?
No idea.
Jimmy, do you know how big he was at his biggest, Hulk?
I'm sorry?
Do you know how much Hulk weighed at his biggest?
I thought he was 320 or 335 or something back in the day.
I'd heard 330, 335
Yeah.
probably sounds right.
Yeah.
Right in there.
But, you know, he could lose weight so quick, though. When he wanted to slim down for the movies or slim down for Thunder in Paradise, 1 week's time, it's almost like, wow, you know, that was the crazy thing about it. But he could kind of go back and forth with anything on what he was doing at the time.
Jimmy, were you shocked because I think that, in my opinion, Hogan it's either him or Jim Londos, the most consequential guys in the history of wrestling. And I think it probably goes to Hogan. You know, it's either one of the two. You're not talking about good or bad. You're talking about great or greater. And I think Hogan is probably that guy because of what he did at WrestleMania and then what he did in the Attitude Era. You know, he brought in the two biggest eras of wrestling history. They're killing it right now, but before that, the two biggest eras was all on Hulk Hogan's back. Now, there were others people there, but he was the one guy. Were you surprised about the Attitude Era? Because me and Mr. Brisco were in it on the other side, and we were very surprised because we were the ones taking the ass whooping from you guys.
Oh, no. Well, you know what? When everything was said and done, I was managing Hulk down there, and I don't care what you do. You sooner or later everything burns out. Look what happened to John Cena. John Cena's great. I love John Cena. Unbelievable. But if you keep doing the same thing forever, sometimes you got to change. The old saying: if you do what you've always done, you're going to have what you've always had. And so we made that change down there when they came up with the idea of maybe switching, and Hulk and I talked, and because he always asked me, what do you think? What do you think? And I just said, well, you're the boss, whatever you think, but sometimes a change might be good. He goes, but this is a big chance if we take this. What if it doesn't work? I said, well, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work. We can do something else. But sure enough, it turned out to be unbelievable. And the rest is history. But it really helped both companies. It helped us at WCW. And then by y'all having the attitude area up there, y'all started doing box office business. So it really worked out for everybody.
Jimmy,
well, you're right. Jimmy, you're right. Go ahead, Don.
Jimmy. I'm in a nice house and got a nice car because it worked with Hogan. So I want to tell you thank you, because we didn't have guaranteed contracts until you guys started kicking our butts, and then Vince had to match what you guys were doing to give us guaranteed contracts. So yes, it not only worked. I want to say thank you. Everything I have around me, yes, thank you very much.
Well, don't thank me. It's always Hulk, buddy. I mean. Yeah. I was along for the ride. I was just there. If he called me for anything, I remember when we went to see Ric Flair when Rick was sick, and we thought this might be it. I think Wendy had called and said, he might only have 4 or 5 hours left. Boy, Hulk called me and goes, Jimmy, where are you? I said, I'm over here. He said, don't go home. Come straight over here. We're going to get a charter flight. So he got a charter. Man, we flew right down to Atlanta and saw Rick. We walked right in. And, of course, Ashley was there, his daughter, of course, and Wendy. And they met us at the front. She said, we don't think he's going to make it. Hulk went straight in that room. He grabbed Rick's hand, rubbed it. He said, Rick, you're going to be okay. Don't you worry about it. And he had a little Bible in his hand, and he gave it to Rick. And then Rick was kind of off and on at the time, kind of mumbling and talking. And Hulk asked the doctor, what do you think? He said, we're going to know in the next 24 hours, But thank God Rick pulled out of it. And, but that's the kind of guy Hulk was. But he loved Ric Flair. He loved him.
Yeah. I tell you, one of the biggest thrills of my life, Jimmy, was I was at the Wrestle Hulk. We were in Philadelphia, and he walks in, and I said, what do you want to do, Hulk? And he goes, you're the champ. And I said, yeah, I can die right now happy. I said, Hulk Hogan just said that to me. And I told him, I said, this is your belt. I'm just holding it for you. Oh. And it was so cool. He was, he's one of those guys that, you look at and you put him on a pedestal like so many of us did. I remember I wanted to shoot a video with him one time for YouTube, our little JBL and Cole show, and you were in it. And right. I come to the dressing room, and I didn't know the formality. So I get there, and I said, Jimmy, we want to do something with Hulk, and I have to get permission. What do I want to do? And Hulk goes, what do you want, John? And I said, we were doing a silly little video on YouTube. He goes, okay. I said, that's it. Okay, then yeah. But he was fantastic. He was just one of the boys. He just happened to be one of the greatest of all time, maybe the greatest, but he's just one of the boys.
He loved this so much. He loved, like, when we do something down here, he go, well, who's the agent? I said, I think Briscoe's in charge of it. He goes, oh, great. Because he loved everybody that he grew up with, whether it was Brian or the Briscoes or just anybody that was down here, Matsuda, everybody. That's what he loved, because that's where he started. But he just loved the business so much. I remember we came back from doing Raw about 2 years ago. We flew from here on a private plane up. We picked Shawn Michaels up. We flew with him down to Raw, and we got down there. And after the show was over, after we dropped Shawn back off up there and came back here and got in the car to go back home, he said, I missed this so much. I just missed it. I wish I could wrestle one more time. I miss it so much. And that's what he did. That's what he loved. He loved this business.
Yeah, and the thing that he did, I was just watching it the other day with The Rock. I was there, and oh my God, it just snowballed. It just snowballed. You get out there with The Rock and they're in Toronto, and all of a sudden it turns into this moment that people are going to talk about as long as professional wrestling is alive. People are going to talk about that moment, and it just happened to be two incredible performers out there at the same time, and you could see the love, but not only that, you could see the appreciation of the fans. That's got to be pretty cool to see that.
Well, you know what, it really was. And when I wasn't there for that, because I was over in Europe doing a personal appearance, but Hulk was up there, and I watched the video at his house, because I didn't see it. He said, come over and watch the video. I saw it, and every time Rock would throw a punch, they would boo, and every time Hulk would throw it, they would cheer, and it was just crazy. But Rock is so special. What a sweetheart. He said something so nice about Hulk. He tweeted that out. And Hulk and I went to see his dad, Rocky, when they had the special thing for life over there for him. And Rock came by and saw Hulk and saw us. And he was so kind. The same thing with Dusty, We went to, Dusty's celebration of life. We went to that. So anytime anything happened, we'd always go see the people that he grew up with and loved so much.
Brian, I've always thought that the most consequential match in wrestling history was WrestleMania 3. They can talk about all these five-star matches they won't, but nobody's going to remember the five-star match from 2025, 40 years from now. Everybody who's a wrestling fan knows where they were when Hogan slammed Andre, the most famous slam in the history of the world. And that, to me, that was the most consequential match in wrestling history. If that doesn't go well, WrestleMania is still going to make it, but not like it did. You had the right giant, you had the right Hulkster, everything worked. What your thoughts on that? Is that, am I overstating it, or do you think that's the truth? That's the most consequential thing that in wrestling history.
John, I think you're right on target, and I'll never forget that night. I mean, the electricity in the Pontiac Silverdome was so thick. I mean, you couldn't cut it with a knife. It was amazing. And I remember Terry was just kind of freaking out about what the giant, whether he was going to do the deal or not.
That's right. The giant was ribbing him about whether he's going to do it or not, right?
Right, exactly. And so, Terry was really sweating, and then he kind of, he'll tell Jimmy or me or anybody that's, close to him, he kind of likes to bounce things off and, get a gauge on what we feel. And I just thought, it's going to be good. Everything's going to be okay. Think positive, it was amazing. It was the most consequential match in the most consequential spot of the match that certainly I can remember. And I think that most wrestling fans that understand their history can remember.
Brian, you've been his close friend since the very beginning. You had one of his very first matches, and we were kind of debating whether it was the first or not, or third or second.
Yeah.
Right? It was close, whatever it was.
Yeah.
You've been with him this whole time. He come to all your Gold's Gyms opening. He helped you when you were running for political office. He's been with you. You've been with him. What would you say about his career in retrospective, looking back at it? If you could tell it to somebody that was not known for wrestling, not an insider, just somebody that was out there, how would you describe Hulk Hogan?
He was like Babe Ruth, Lou Gehrig, Joe DiMaggio in baseball. You take all three of them, and that's what Hulk was to wrestling. He was the king of wrestling. He was the catalyst, the what we all have made a living on his back. Certainly when you say talk about Mr. Londos and the Briscoes back in that era. Just kidding.
That's right. That's right.
Wow. I thought this was going to be a nice podcast.
No, it is. Come on, man. Come on. But, this is how I say Terry lived his life. He planned as if he was going to live forever, but he lived as if he was going to die tomorrow.
Yeah. And Mr. Briscoe, you were with him very beginning. You were there when he didn't break his ankle, but as was reported, but did hurt it pretty badly. And you were there that got him booked in Pensacola. How would you define Hulk Hogan, either his career or him personally? You can say whatever you want.
Well, I tell you, John, and the guys, in any business, there's one guy. I mean, Brian mentioned all the great baseball players there, the Babe Ruths of the world. And when you talk about professional wrestling, you got to start with Hulk Hogan. Even though Jim Londos, John, you and I have done so much history podcast, and we've studied the history of all these guys. Londos was great, and just a different time and era. I don't know, if you could do 1 or 1A, but Terry, to me, Hulk Hogan, to me, he we're talking modern day. He defined modern day professional wrestling. Did everybody believe what Hogan did? No, but everybody look at that guy and say, "Man, what a representative of professional wrestling." Everybody in the world, from the Jimmy Kimmel to the Johnny Carson. I saw that clip the other day of Johnny Carson when Hogan walked out and Carson just flipping out. He said, "I wish I had anything on my body that was that big," And Hogan was so sharp mentally that he could compete against the Jimmy Kimmels of the Johnny Carson and the David Letterman. If they had something wise to say, Hogan could match it right back immediately, and that takes a lot of intelligence. I think Terry should be remembered as a guy that set our business on fire and that elevated it from the high school gym and the armories that both Brian and I remember very well back in the days. But he elevated our business, and I don't think. We've had a lot of people come close to it, but when you carve out that damn mountain up there, the first face on it to me is always going to be Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan.
Yeah, Mount Rushmore might not should have Terry Bollea on it. Mount Rushmore should just be Terry Bollea. Yeah, he might be the whole damn mountain. Jimmy, I can't remember if it was Pete Rose or Wade Boggs who said in one of their Hall of Fame speech, he said, "I was sitting backstage listening to some of these guys, some of these great legends." And he said, "It would be like you being in our world and listening to Babe Ruth and listening to Joe DiMaggio and listening to Mickey Mantle." I thought it was so cool the way he put that. It was so respectful the way he put that. We lose perspective of that sometimes because it's just Hulk. You see him. But you forget he was on the cover of Sports Illustrated. You forget he was the one that slammed the Giant in front of 93,000 people. You forget he was the one that brought in the Attitude Era with the heel turn. He was the one that years after his physical prime, went out there with The Rock and created one of the greatest moments in WWE history again.
Yes.
What would you think? What would you say as far as a legacy, Jimmy, as his close friend, as his associate, and also a fellow worker? What would you say is Hulk Hogan's legacy?
Oh, wow. Everything y'all really said, you've really summed it up. But I just think that there's never going to be another one like him that come along. I don't care. People say, "Jimmy, you're crazy." There's always somebody to take somebody's place. But I think he was so special. He had everything. He could talk. He had the look. He had the heart, sympathetic, business when he had to be. But like I said before, he did so many things for so many different people that a lot of people really never know what he did because there's nobody out there really pushing, talking about it. Y'all did great today. This is awesome today because we're able to let people know what he was really kind of about. But it's just going to be, it's so hard to describe what he really did. And I think when they have the service for him that's going to be coming up, I'm not sure what day it's going to be yet, but when they let us know, I think there's going to be a lot of people there. They're going to say a lot of nice things and really people will be able to leave there and really realize what Hulkamania and Hulk Hogan was really all about.
Yeah, and
I got one final question here, and I John, you're included in it. That's what are your favorite memory? What is the favorite memory, Brian? I'll start with you because you've known him a lot. What was your favorite memory ever of Terry Bollea, Hulk Hogan?
Oh, there were so many, Gerald. Golly. I remember sitting on the back porch after Terry met Linda. He introduced me to her sister, Christy. And we were sitting on the back porch of the Claridge family's home in California. And a beautiful home with all kinds of toys and everything there. And all of a sudden, the sun, it reflected in such an amazing way. And it was right on our faces. And he goes to me, "Brian, this could all be ours." I'll never forget him saying that. And he went on to make his own money and do his own thing. But, he was kind of ribbing at the same time. But because I just met her sister, and oh God, just so many great memories. But too many, Gerald. I couldn't put my hand on one.
I understand. Jimmy, your favorite memory of?
Well, one stands out. We were over in London, and we just met Simon Cowell back then. He was in the record business back then, and he got with us about cutting a song with a group called Green Jelly. He said, "Hook, if you caught this song, Leader of the Pack," he said, "I guarantee it'll be #1 here for at least 2 months." And so we went in there and we cut the song with Green Jelly, Hook did, and us and everything else, and we did it. And he was right. It was #1 for about 3 or 4 weeks. It really was. But what happened then? We went to a hospital and we saw this young man there. And when we came back, Hulk says, "Jimmy, we need to write a song." A lot of people. It's on the album that we cut. Hulk's American Made album, but everybody always laughs at it. But it's called "The World Just Lost Another Hulkamaniac" that we wrote. We had strings in it and everything, and Hulk did the singing on it, really, which was I thought was pretty darn good, you know. But we did all that in about a 2-week period of time. We got over there. He came back and he said, "No, I want to put this on an album. Let's cut it," and we did it. But just stuff like that was so special. Was so many people. And of course, Simon Cowell after that became to have big star like he did with American Idol and everything. But just there's so many stories, but that's just one that I always thought about.
John, yours?
Yeah, it's like I told you earlier, the picture of Hogan, with our kids in Bermuda. There were several stars there that day. Hogan by far the biggest star, by far the biggest star in the place. Hogan's the only one that came over. He could barely walk. I told my kids, hey, listen, guys, we're not going to get a chance to speak to them. Just, look at them, when we'll see if you can take some pictures of them, while they're at set and stuff. Just don't bother them. Hogan came over and he made a lifetime experience for these kids. And you get to see it, not just the Hulkster, but you got to see into Terry Bollea's soul that day. And what a good dude he was. That was so cool. And it was just so cool for him to do that. Professionally, when he was with The Rock, and I just watched the clip last night where he's taking the punches, then he does the old finger wag. Hot Rod used to always tell me, you can't out Hulk the Hulk. Don't imitate Hogan because you can't do it. And there's nothing like it. When he did that with The Rock, and he's years past his physical prime, and that place went crazy for Hogan. That tells you everything you need to know about him professionally. I just was blown away by the fact that he was able to be able to do that at that stage of his life. It's just a remarkable story. Well, guys, thank you very much for joining us. If there's anything else, I don't want to cut anybody off or say anything, but I appreciate you guys joining us. It's been so much fun talking about the Hulkster. And Jimmy, you and Hulk have been so cool to me over the years. I can't thank you enough. And Brian, we've become good friends. It's so cool to hear your stories about Hulk and how he helped you. And of course, Mr. Brisco, getting him started and getting him booked in a million different places. It's just the legacy of Hulk Hogan. There's never going to be another Hulk. As Hot Rod said, you can't out Hulk the Hulk. So,
well, Hulk loved both of you guys, man. And so thank you. I'm so honored just doing this with y'all today. Thank you so much. Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you, guys.